questions on this page? And here again, it just explains, now I did do something wrong with the figures. I should have put in, the difference was 18,891, which is a difference of 41.1% for those last two figures you see on the right. I should have corrected that, but I just caught it when I was reviewing it the other day. But it doesn't change the equation any. It's just that as far as how the monies are spent. Same thing here. There's that room I was talking about.
Tell us about the room. Is that?
Oh, it's. I was going to put that later in my report, but I can talk about it now if you want me to. Okay, yeah, it's coming up real shortly.
Okay.
And then here's some more figures here. Now, one thing is, I'm only asking for $1,100. They've got another provision in the grant. You cannot supplant funds. In other words, if you try to cut my training budget, because we have to send budgets from previous years to the state, if they see that we're taking county state funds and replacing them where county funds are generally spent, we're going to get penalized. We could possibly lose the grant or get penalized at a minimum. So all I'm asking for is the same amount of money as last year for training, even if I don't use it, just so they don't accuse us of supplanting funds. Does that make sense to everybody?
What happens to the money if you don't use it?
Well, that's a good thing. That's more money we spend next year. Yeah, exactly. But there's so many variables here. We don't know where the pandemic's going, for example. I mean, if we get a vaccine after the first of the year or something, we plan on resuming all the normal training, so I'll spend the $1,100. But if the vaccine is not all that it is, or it doesn't happen, or they decide to do training differently, because a lot of people have gotten used to Zoom. They might decide not to have a big gathering, and they might just decide to do it by Zoom, so then we wouldn't have all the costs for travel and food and lodging and so forth. So that is a good question, though. Right. And the reason that you see a disparity here is because we use grant funds for myself and Maureen Adams, my assistant, to go to Cleveland, Ohio for the national conference. All right. There's just a small disparity here. I'm asking for $17 extra just for cost of living adjustments, so that's why that figure's different. And even if it's $1, it shows up in red, so you got to cover everything. Office supplies, again, this is only a difference of $38. We've been doing a lot of out-of-pocket. You know, if we run out of highlighters or tape, we've been buying it ourselves, but we would like to just crank it up a few dollars, and I think that'll compensate. Yeah, we're not asking for $1 million squad cars or, stuff like that. Didn't mean to pick on the sheriff, it was just something that came to mind.
It's easy to do.
With the prosecutors out, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so anyway, here is our veterans population. And one thing I remember Commissioner Chickering bringing out is we always had a big disparity between what the state was spending. Remember in years past I said I wanted to make it a goal to at least catch up the state or surpass the state. Well, this is the first year. I think this is a statistical dead heat. Berrien County, and I know people are always staggered by these figures, the VA spent last year $70,128,000 just for Berrien County veterans. That includes medical care, but a large portion of that was claims this year. So, our office is the biggest generator of claims for veterans. There are some other players, like Battle Creek will do some if they're up there, they'll do a claim up there. And they may be from Berrien County. And of course, the clinic gets a lot of money too. So I don't want to sound like we solely brought in the $70 million, but we are the biggest player in this equation here. Probably 2/3 or almost 3/4 of the funds are a direct result of our office. And I say our office, I say Maureen Adams, I say Tom Kaiser from the American Legion comes in twice a month. I'm talking about the 2 temporaries we had the previous year. So we were just a big team. And so $70 million is a lot of money to bring into Berrien County that's spent right here. So going through all those figures, we have actually, within a few, I think $20 or $30 actually caught up with the state. And if this is the first time you've been in a budget hearing, or you've only been in the last year or two, at one time we were almost $1,000 behind the state average. So now you can see it's a statistical dead heat. Let's see, on the bottom line there, the state increase per veteran is $1,138 versus Berrien County $1,116. So, to be several $100s, almost $1,000 in past years difference, and to be within that short of range, I'm pretty happy about this. Are there any questions on this page? Okay, here's a budget request for 2021. Like I explained earlier, we just haven't had a lot of burial claims filed. A lot of it is because of eligibility. A lot of veterans aren't eligible for it. Either they're peacetime veterans or they make too much money. The rules haven't changed since, I think it's 1913 is when they came. It's been $300 since like 1913. And remember, that was before World War I. So all they had for a context was the Spanish border wars that the United States had and the Spanish-American War. Those were the only, things they had. They didn't contemplate World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. I mean, just astronomically drove the figures up. So they've kept it at $300 for over 100 years. Yeah. Let's see here. And then we'd like to participate, it also includes participating in 3 or more of the National Veterans Legal Service Program webinars. They cost about $45 a piece. And of course, we watch those in our room, so that's real nice. Request the 2 veterans law books that we get each year. I've requested these books every year since 2012. The state and the national recommends that we have these particular books because they not only talk about a claim situation, but they give some scenarios. So it's really, really helpful, and we refer to that quite often. All right, let's see here. These are just for our memberships. It costs Maureen and I $75 each to belong to the state and national. Okay, all right, I'll wrap this up real quickly. So anyway, these are the different requests that I have here. And we do have COVID-19 relief in our recommendation here. We only need to go over $14,802 where the county gets reimbursed. I hope that will be approved okay, because the state will approve that for us, reimburses for us. And here's some more of the strategic goals, and I already talked about the COVID relief. The COVID relief is a total of $23,577 out of that $64,802, so it's about a third. Over a third, actually. All right. And then here's our goals. And you already had the PowerPoint. I hear we're a little short on time, so I'll speed this up. Any questions? Okay. And
Lee, I see one of your goals is to name your new conference room for
yes, good point.
Warren Schultz.
Yes.
And we don't need to talk about it now, but Annette, what is the process for doing that, please?
Yeah, we have a whole process. We have to fill out an application.
Okay.
And then a committee will be formed of the commissioners and other elected officials.
Okay.
Put together to review that and then possibly take the recommendation to the full board. So
Okay,
make sure you
great.
see me when you're getting ready to start
Sure.
that in motion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I'll close because I know we got to get out of here. I'll close on this note. His daughter's been in contact with our office. He was the longest serving veteran service officer we ever had. I've heard nothing but good things about this guy, and I got a whole binder here of all the things that he did over his history. So very impressive record. He was a World War II Marine veteran himself, and I really, we have an autograph room, and so that's why I thought it'd be appropriate to name that room after him because everybody liked him. And that's it. Let's see here. I think I have one more slide. Any more questions?
I have a question, Lee.
Yes, sir.
With the opening, we didn't mention the opening of the clinic in South Bend.
Right.
How does that help the veterans in our area?
Oh, great. It's been great. And as you know, we have a van that goes there too. We have 2 DAV vans out there. We have one that goes to Battle Creek and one that goes to Mishawaka.
Yeah.
And of course, the pandemic has kind of mixed things up a little bit, but we are resuming all the transports in both of them.
Okay, but it's been a big help to me.
Yes, we really like that clinic a lot.
Any questions from Zoom? Any more questions from the Zoom here? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the next is the trial court. Thank you, Lee. We are about 20 minutes behind, so I will continue to push to try and get you back on schedule.
In trial court, are they there?
They're on Zoom.
Okay.
You'll see the big long table, yes.
That's us. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Do we get copies of anything?
Do they have copies of everything?
Annette sent it out yesterday.
Annette had it.
And Carrie, you're sharing your screen, right, Carrie? There we go.
I am
Okay.
doing it right this moment.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. All right. You just let us know when you're ready and I'll let Judge Mayfield take it.
That you introduce, that they introduce.
Oh, yes.
Introduce themselves.
Carrie, can you please let us know everybody who's in the room, please, for the record?
Yep, absolutely. So, you have myself, Carrie Smetanka Haney, trial court administrator. I have, to my left, Tara Modigal, who is our finance, manager, which I always get the, title wrong, but I think that's it. Judge Mayfield, obviously here, is our chief judge. I have across from me, Tom Wasson, our friend of the court. Kind of kitty corner for me, I have Amy Flaga, who's our civil and criminal division administrator. And then last but not least is Elvin Gonzalez, who's our family division administrator.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Carrie.
You're welcome. Yes,
Can you email that list to Commissioner Yarborough, just to
I
make
will.
sure she's got all the names?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Not a
Just to the
problem.
group, we are going to mute this microphone, so we limit feedback. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, good morning. I have the distinct honor of presenting the first ever virtual presentation of the trial court budget. And we are going to attempt to assist you, support you in getting back on track because we too have to get back on track. I've got some Zoom hearings that are in waiting. Just as a little background reading, I believe you should have previously had access to what is the FOC restructuring. I think that's one of the things that was provided. That's personnel and structural. And also you've got some history relative to the truancy program. I want to thank and acknowledge my admin team, that's everybody else around the table, for assisting in my preparation for a presentation this morning and their availability for subject matter expertise to answer any of those deep drill questions that you might have. So I'm certainly not going to reference, I'm not going to read through everything. You should have that, well, one on screen, but I believe everyone should have individually received the information as well. I do think there are a couple of things as we walk through I want you to be mindful of. One would be that any line item requiring software services, upgrade, maintenance, you can anticipate projection as part of those contracts at minimal, an annual 5% increase. So doing the math where we are required this budget cycle to work from 2019 actuals, that's going to be like an automatic 10% increase in some spaces. I'll try to highlight those as we run through. And then additionally, I would also note that I will try to capture, but you'll kind of note that the smaller budgets under any circumstance with any type of increase is going to reflect what would probably appear to be a more exaggerated percentile change or increase, okay? What you are looking at now, that as it relates, as I mentioned, that the trial court, we've got the increase there. That is primarily driven by COVID. We've got backlog jury trials, going to anticipate increase in those costs for transcripts. We've got juvenile lifer, expert witness fees, significant backlog, printing even for the questionnaires and the letters. That information you can find, I think we provided that as part of your packet. You've got a general fund, maybe that's the fifth or sixth page. But the last two bullets will kind of address what we're looking at in terms of some of the change in dynamics within that trial court line item. Should note proudly that the district court is requesting less. And the misdemeanor probation, that's actually related to required fees for training, certification for the substance use parts of their work and requirements, okay? I don't think there's anything else in particular as it relates to jury board or probate. You should note that the family division admin and intake, that as well, look at the sheet you were provided there with general fund, that's the fourth bullet there. That's the movement of contractual services, $30K for process service from the family admin to intake for NA mediations that were not able to have been completed this year due to COVID. This is simply the realignment for that NA mediation with 2021.
And just to throw in there as well, that realignment actually did occur for the 2020 budget year, but as we're comparing to 2019 actuals, that's
Correct.
why it continues to look a little bit off kilter.
So that it's not.
So it is not.
Again, that's what I say, you put
Yep.
those, factor both of those there, one, that you've asked us to do this with 2019 actuals, and two, again, COVID impact with things that were unable to be completed for 2020 and anticipate rollover for 2021. All right, under juvenile probation, the only thing that should reference there is it's related to EPICS. We were unable to do, again, the EPIC training for the train of trainers within the division because of COVID. And then we also anticipate 2021, there are going to be some modifications with Raise the Age that will come through. I don't think that there is anything significant. Again, self-help, as I said, it looks like a modest increase. We're talking about $15. Or honestly, we're not talking about $15.
$100, yep.
Okay, $100. So that's about it, all right?
Next page.
Next page. Where's it going through? All right, special, is that where we are?
Special
Yeah,
funds, yep.
special funds, okay. Friend of the court, as I said, that was some restructure. You have all of that. Mr. Watson will be available for any deep dives relative to that. I think it is what's significant here under special. One would be the child care, foster care, and again, under special budget, under special funds with the presentation, you will note that this is actually driven by what is for this line item, a new reimbursement structure, okay? The state pays first, in effect, all right? And so that's why you will note that as increase. The Truancy Academy, again, as I said, you have some history, should have received relative to that. Discontinuation of that is our determination, recommendation, relying upon the declining referrals, the cost per student when you look at the amount that was engaged, the impact of COVID, again, on families, virtual in-person, schools themselves on what how they're going to be proceeding in terms of the truancy issue, and that we do want to be fiscally responsible as it relates to the budget and what we are requesting. I don't believe if there are further questions related to that. We provided the information, but Elvin would be available to address any other impact. And certainly, it does not leave the community without resources, as truancy will remain a status offense, and the prosecutor's office, as those are brought in, will respond appropriately, and the court will also respond in terms of appropriate services related to that. Right. All right, and the last thing there, I think that's really significant, that you understand our state grants, judicial grants, that's JG Mental Health in particular, and through that court. The state budget has not yet been finished, and I am told we're gonna roll with it. Until we can finally get those official numbers. Part of that has to do again with fiscal years and cycles. And so, it's October, and no, they haven't done what they need it to do for us to do what you would have us do, other than, as I said, roll with it. And that's where we are now. I don't think that there's anything else there on special fund. We can certainly come back if there are other questions. Nothing that I had. Finally, you're looking at our priority request. We understand that our updating equipment is necessary in terms of that's our new system, and as well, and all that will be a part of that. Body scanners, I think that half of that has already been taken care of.
Is in the process.
In the process,
Yes, we have
so we've
one
got
half this year, one half next year.
Okay, so this is the first half relative to that. The centers at the cameras rather at the center, and that's just bringing the system current. And remember, I told you about parts, maintenance, things, okay? Probation, court, misdemeanor probation services, again, the Equivant module. The juvenile center, as they explained this to me, I made a note to myself that simply said it's obsolete and it's very difficult to find punch clock parts for replacement at this time. So that one for me is a fairly simple need to walk through. Juvenile probation and juvenile center, the Johnson administration era chairs that remain. So that's basically it. Open for questions, comments, anything else that you may need. At this time, as I said, that last sheet I integrated into introduction and hopefully where to help you plug those pieces in when you're looking at the budget itself. Important to note that though that 87% of the total budget is salary and benefits, okay? Only 13 for general operating. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
We're trying to get you back on track, so any questions that you
Open
have
up.
for us? Yes.
May I ask if there are any questions in this room? Commissioner Chicory?
Thank you. It would have been helpful to have that presentation where we could have seen it beforehand.
I sent it last night at 5 o'clock.
Well,
Sorry, that's what.
okay, I appreciate it. Anyway, could you give us an update on your FTE counts from 2018, 2019 to 2020, and then projected into 2021? And then by FTE, by FTE, I mean full-time employees, part-time employees, and then contract and temp.
Okay, that's a lot, and we're gonna try and do this partially off of memory. We're down, probably about 6 or 7 staff at this point in time right now that we have posted. Those are largely clerical positions and also positions at the juvenile center. The number of staff that we have has not changed much over the past 2 years. We've lost an assistant supervisor position here at the court that we gave up. We've also adjusted, I think Judge Mayfield referenced previously, the restructure at the front of the court. So we have adjusted one supervisory position there. With regards to some part-time staff, we have increased in some areas with regards to Equivant specifically. We've brought on a couple of retired folks to continue to do some work for transitioning into Equivant. And then we did also bring in a part-time law clerk because we constantly seem to be without one of those at some point in time.
And we are now full staff.
We are now full staff, and our part-time law clerk will be taking a break for the remainder of the year. But otherwise, we always round out at about 225. That includes all the judges. But that's the general estimate that we use here when we're counting off our staff. That includes the center, that includes Niles, and that includes the St. Joe courthouse.
Gary, did you mention the FOC change?
The restructure, the physical restructure, or the staffing restructure?
The staffing.
The staffing restructure, yeah, so, I'll let Tom jump in on that, because he's a lot more well-versed in that than I am.
Sure. As the commissioners remember, back probably about a month ago now, maybe a month and a half ago, I made a presentation based on the restructuring that we have done in net. As Carrie just mentioned, we are down one supervisory position. That was due to the restructuring of putting two of our divisions together in the front of the court. So one net FTE reduction in a supervisory capacity in the front of the court. I don't know if that answers your question, Ben, or not.
That's, yeah, thank you.
Is that it? Are you?
Yeah, if it's helpful for all of us, Carrie, maybe sometime in the next several days, you could do a little more precise FTE count and break it out by organization and send that to Brian, and then he can plug it into our thinking.
I will put a little calendar note to myself to do that today for you.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So to the group, we are running behind. I had asked Carrie and her team to try and move quickly. So I know the judge was speaking quickly, trying to push through this information. I also know that due to Zoom, not all of it is easily, essentially, is easy to hear. If any of you have follow-up questions, let me know. I will work with the courts to get that information to you. That is one of the downsides of doing this remotely. I know that I'm struggling to hear at times. So any questions, shoot me an email. We'll track down the information.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I look forward to being able sometime to talk, because that's not the committee I'm on.
Yep.
And I have lots of questions, but I don't think it's about the dollars. It's just about what happened to this or that.
Yep.
And so I thank you all for your, for your presentation, and ask our commissioners if you have other questions, please to get them to Administrator Dissett. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and we're always open and available to answer anything. All right? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Judge.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're officially caught up. We're ahead slightly.
So the treasurer was on the phone, so you're down.
Okay, hello.
Yep, so if any of you need a brief recess to run to the restroom, grab coffee, feel free. The treasurer will be physically in the room in just a couple of seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Unmute your room, you're on.
Our budget, Berrien County budget hearing is now back in session at this time.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I might, and Shelley, please excuse me, but just for a minute. For other members of the board, I have an issue I want to raise and solicit your advice, Madam Chair, and
Yes.
fellow board members. It's come to my attention, and maybe yours as well, that the drain commissioner has not submitted any information whatsoever to us. And Brian and his team have been religious about getting out in front of presenters for this budget hearing, and the drain commissioner has not either complied or responded or anything. And I quite frankly don't think it's worth my time or your time to have him come in and talk to us when we don't have any idea what he's gonna say, nor do we have any information. So, my attitude would be we should tell the drain commissioner that we'll be happy to meet with him when he gives us the information we need. But today is a waste of time for everybody.
And his appointment is at 10:15 a.m.
Just my thought. What's everybody else think?
Any other thoughts?
I agree with Bill, I think,
Commissioner Hayes?
I'm in agreement with Bill. Maybe we should postpone it until we get something.
Commissioners on Zoom, do you have any thought?
I would tend to agree. The other elected officials are able to get their budgets put together and submitted on time.
Would you say your name? Who just talked?
That was
Commissioner Harrison.
That was Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Curran. I would agree with that as well.
Thank you. It's not a vote, not a motion, but a.
Madam Chair, what I would propose is, based on the feedback from the group, I'll contact the drain commissioner's office, let him know that he's being removed from today's schedule. I'll then contact the various other departments and ask them to plan on stepping up their attendance by about 15 minutes each.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is the Administrator said also ask him why he did not submit anything prior to this.
Commissioner, yes, I'll relay the conversation that just occurred, express from the group disappointment, frustration, ask why the timeline wasn't met, and then let him know that at the discretion of the board, I'll figure out time when you all are ready to receive his information.
That would be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay. So on our schedule now is our treasurer, Shelley White.
Everyone, thank you for having me. The Treasurer's Office. As you can see, the purpose of our office, the Office of the County Treasurer is established to be the custodian of county funds, receiving of all money received by the county, settlement of current year taxes with local municipalities, investing of funds, collection of delinquent taxes, the foreclosure process for tax delinquent properties, and to investigate invalid principal residence and exemptions. At this point, I'm not seeing many opportunities in the treasurer's office. I wish I could say I do, but at this point, it's a little grim. My biggest issues heading into 2021, looking at the investments, interest rates obviously have declined considerably the past few months, and we're watching this effect just because of the COVID. I'm not sure how those are going to bounce back anytime soon, but we will do our best to keep the investments of the county money intact. My other issue is the concern of the Raffaelli versus Oakland County Supreme Court ruling on excess proceeds from tax foreclosure sales, how that's going to impact our foreclosure fund and the delinquent tax revolving fund.
Shelley, on that, are you part of an association of treasurers in the state? And are there the treasurers banging on the legislation, the legislators to get some relief here?
The Michigan Association of County Treasurers, I've been in meetings with them, and they have proposed legislation, and it is actually being proposed in Lansing today.
Right.
Okay, we don't know the outcome, how that's gonna work. The legislation, they have not tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it the best they can, because they will, as this moves forward, we'll be able to deduct as many costs as we can from that. There may not be anything left over for that property owner, because we'll be able to deduct like payroll, demolition costs, you know, any fee associated, mowing, maintenance, anything.
The mail, we spend so much
Yes, the
money on
mailings, all of our fees, we'll be able to subtract all that. So, what that outcome's gonna be, so I don't think it's going to be as detrimental as what we think, but we do have to take that precaution.
And our senator and representatives for Berrien County, where do they stand on this?
As a matter of fact, we are meeting with Senator Lasada this Friday. I spoke with our state representatives, Brad and Pauline, this past Saturday at a meeting. Neither one of them are able to join us. I'm still working on trying to get someone from their office to join in on the meeting, just so we can get them up to speed. I talked with Pauline in depth a little bit about it, and she was not aware of how detrimental this can be. So, but anyway, Senator Lasada is on board.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
Madam Chair, a question?
Yes, Commissioner Curran?
Yes, Commissioner Curran. Thank you, Shelley, for that. But the court ruling can't be overturned or changed by the legislature, correct? So even though we apply all of our costs to that, any surplus will still go to the property owner, the previous property owner, correct? Or can the legislature override that?
Jim, I'm gonna mute the room and have you re-ask that question, please.
Okay, my question was, the legislature cannot overturn the court ruling, so that even though we could apply fees and all of our costs to that, any surplus would still have to go to the property owner, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Can I-
Yes.
think the legislature could amend the law and allow that not to occur. So it would be still any of our costs associated with that property, we can charge off against that. But if there is anything left over, it would still have to go to the property owner, correct?
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So the commissioner is asking excellent questions. With respect, I would just remind the board that the board is tied to litigation. And I would respectfully request that you hold off on litigation related questions until you have counsel here who can answer with more specific details. Commissioner Curran, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to kick this one down the road, but we are in active litigation, and public discussion of outcomes is not a great idea at this moment.
Thank you for stopping us, helping us.
Okay, thank you. But I guess
Treasurer and
other than the litigation, I was looking at the what the legislature could do regarding that court ruling, but I understand. Thank you for that answer.
we'll talk about dollars.
Okay. Moving forward. Overall, the treasurer's office isn't seeing too many substantial changes for 2021, but we are seeing a decrease in the collection of property taxes. The major decrease is in the collection of current year taxes, which will in turn have a bearing on what is being borrowed when we do settle. I've talked with some local units, And they've informed me that summer collection was coming in earlier than usual. And yesterday, being tax due date, they were busier than normal, which was a good sign. Four Winds Pilt money is showing a decrease as well compared to prior years. And as personal property tax begins to fade, there will be a decrease in the state reimbursement of this tax as well. As I mentioned earlier, another significant decline will be with the investments. The rate of interest that we have seen in the past has dropped considerably in the past few months due to the COVID. Therefore, the return on our investments isn't going to be great. And then this just breaks it down by our general fund, the special revenue, the enterprise funds, which is our delinquent tax revolving fund and foreclosure funds. The biggest increase is in the number of title searches being done due to more properties having delinquent taxes that are in their third year of the foreclosure process. Right now, we're at the 2,000 mark for those parcels that could possibly face foreclosure. A majority of these will hopefully get redeemed between now and March 31st of 2021, or they will make payment arrangements with my office. Reflecting on that, like this year, I have 190 parcels in the auction, and last year I was right at about that 2,000 mark as well for parcels starting out. So, like I said, it does drop off as we get closer. So, I know that number 2,000 is a little scary, and it scares me too, because those title searches are $175 a piece, and to run an update on that as well is another $175. So it's expensive. As we discussed earlier, the unknown effect of the Raffaelli case, still working on ironing out those details. So we won't go into any more detail on that.
Okay.
As more properties are not paid for in the current year and rolled delinquent to the county on March 1st, of course, this will increase the borrowing, as I stated earlier, for the delinquent tax revolving fund in order to make that local unit whole. We have been fortunate in past years not to have to borrow the full amount of delinquency. So hopefully we can continue that as well. Okay. I had a $765 budget guidance that I didn't meet. That was due to, we have increased the amount of money going into dues and memberships, just so I can be more aware of what is going on in the community by subscribing to additional papers and other memberships across the state, just so I can keep informed with other county treasurers. Copier charges, that, that of course was coming from Chris, and then the lease of the copier equipment, that was still up in the air as well, depending on what kind of contract they could come through with. So that could all change.
Who was Chris Swihart?
Swihart, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, NIS, yes.
Okay.
Capital projects, I did not submit any this year. Reason being, only being in office a short time. I want to review what's going on. There has been talk in the past, and some things that I may consider for next year is installing security cameras above the cash register. And then I would also like one above each window where payments are taken. That is something I feel would be a benefit to the county to protect the taxpayer and of course my staff. Not saying I have issues, but there's always that one time. And I don't want to see it happen. The other thing I'm going to look into as the year goes, possibly outsourcing the foreclosure process to a vendor. We have done an amazing job in-house. I have worked with Register of Deeds. They do my title searches for me. We've done an amazing job, but with constant law changes, lawsuits, the increase of foreclosures, it becomes very cumbersome when I have two people trying to take this on and other staff trying to help out with it as well. It's constantly changing. It's the process itself. I work with it daily. I'm overseeing it. I'm working with attorneys, John Dwayne, any other, it's constant. So that is something I may consider. I have spoke with Laura Freeling and Register of Deeds in regards to this, how this is going to affect her department. She's on board with it. She's okay with it. Because her department does my title searches, and she brings in college students to do these searches, for the few months over the summer. So at that point, that's kind of where I'm at with projects. Like I said, I did not submit this year, but just to give you a heads up, possibly for next year.
Any questions from commissioners in this room? I would like to ask, how many employees do you have?
I have 7.
And does that include the man that goes out and?
No, I am actually down 1.5 people right now. And then I do have a state policeman that goes out and does my job postings. He's contracted. Okay.
Is that less?
No, less retired. Less retired, and I have Matt Octoberg. He does my postings.
Commissioners, on Zoom, do you have any questions of Treasurer White? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
I want to say those pictures are beautiful, the way it's set up for the foreclosure.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what I'm looking at, but the aerial views.
He did a nice job.
Yes, who did it?
It's through Title Check.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're ones I'm actually considering for the outsourcing as well. Because he does about 80% of the state.
All right. It looks really good.
Hang on a second, Ted.
Hello.
How are you? I seen you in person this time. All right.
Does he want to, yeah, you know what, do that? I mean, it's not.
Come on, up.
Glasses are fogging up.
I just got the $2, right?
Yeah, left and right.
9:45.
The only way I want.
Okay, our next presenter will be Todd Johnson. What's his name?
Yep, Todd Johnson.
Todd Johnson, with Buildings and Grounds. Please go ahead.
Dun, dun,
We have
dun.
commissioners in the room here and commissioners on Zoom.
All right. Okay, you guys know all of that, right? Okay, purpose statement, pretty much, you guys are pretty much aware of that. We need to keep things safe, clean, for employees and patrons. Opportunities, next year, I think, it's gonna be kind of a down year, but there are opportunities, for small things, for, say, team building type things, some things we spend more attention on with the guys that we don't so much, or don't have the time to right now. Risk issues, last year, this next year, our budgets are down a little bit. I'm not gonna say formula, because Doug doesn't want me to. But if to be where we need to be, we're still a little short, but a lot of this is, you can
see how our progress is, one, by our capital list. If our capital list continues to grow, that means our general budget, we're not keeping up with the little PM type stuff. We have a lot of surfaces that we redo, a lot of small maintenance equipment stuff that we do, belts, filters, we always have to keep up on. We can't really change that. Actuators, we got just hundreds and hundreds of actuators that are as old as a building. That's the actual part that moves whatever piece of equipment. And we did replace too many last year. Years before that, we were on a pretty good clip, but something we just need to keep an eye on. General fund, man, we're so close. Now, the first part of this was when we asked about our guidance, it was do what we did last year. Well, I'm thinking 21, so I'm thinking 20. Obviously, that's not what Doug was saying.
What are your numbers for the different years?
Well, changes versus 2019 is that 204.
Yeah, okay.
And then compared to 20, it was 44. John had a point on.
Yeah, okay, so where's your 2021 budget post?
This is your form, I don't know.
You didn't fill out the boxes?
Yeah.
Never mind.
I suppose, yeah. Okay, well, we're getting to it. We're coming to it.
Okay, all right.
Major groups, this is the material supplies. It has a lot of it, a lot of the cleaning type stuff in it. We did take pretty good increases on the amount of chemicals, the type of chemicals, the different chemicals that we have, only because of COVID-19. So that's something we had to keep up on. That's not something we're going to really lay back on. Other things that contributed to it.
Excuse me, on the COVID chemicals and all that kind of stuff, do you purchase for all of the county facilities and areas, or?
We purchase it to maintain the buildings day to day. The extras, such as, department might say, we need, 20 things of hand sanitizers or whatever, have been going through Kim. Yeah.
Who's been dealing with the actual COVID?
Yeah, but most of the day-to-day cleaning that we do, sterilizing, that comes out.
Okay, thank you.
The other is, well, this year we've got some fire hoses, which have become very expensive, but they have to be replaced this year, and that's just due to fire codes. And they're just, the supply chain is really tough right now, even for our filters and stuff. We do quite a bit in filters every year just for the equipment, the PMs. Light bulb disposal is, you wouldn't think it's bad, but we have to crush those, and it costs us a couple $1,000 to get rid of those afterwards. So, and we really don't have too much of a option to go anywhere else because of what they are. And it's all the fluorescent bulbs.
Would you speak up a little bit so that?
Yep. This is the major group. This is where we took, this is the biggest hit compared to, let's say that's Doug's 2019.
That's actual 2019, thank you.
Most of this increase, a lot of it is due to utilities. Compared to 2019, 2 years later, it's going to be more. AEP's got, they'll probably have some more raises. They really, with the timing of our budget, it's hard for us to get a fix on what's going to happen because most of their stuff doesn't go to the Energy Board until the 1st of January. February, March, they might come back with a ruling on what they can increase it to. Sometimes they can put an 18% increase in. Now, chances are they won't get it. They might get 4, 5, 3, something like that, whatever the Energy Commission believes that they should get. There's a lot of new infrastructure AEP's doing, so there will be some. But that's something we have to sit back and kind of wait on, and when we get into that first part there, we adjust the best we can.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
Yes.
And Brian, this is probably aimed more at you.
Yes, sir.
I think everybody's been shocked by the amount of increase in the electrical rates this year.
Yeah.
Are we, as a county organization, allowed to advocate to the Energy Commission, et cetera, on behalf of our residents and ourselves to prevent further increases or moderate them, or?
So we as a county can definitely communicate directly with the Michigan Public Service Commission. The MPSC is the board that will govern any rate increases that are felt by us, by any resident or business within this county. The MPSC does annual rate setting, and they have regular public meetings. So yes, we could easily communicate with them. That is a bit of a dual-edged sword. I would remind the board that one of your largest taxpayers is an electric utility, and so just be cautious.
Okay, thank you.
But they let us know, INM, that they were going to increase electric rates. You had an opportunity to speak up. I don't know when it was, but you know.
They did, and to realize that we're different than residential, we're a commercial type.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
different.
You said the county.
You know, yeah, it's just gonna be different than residential's.
Yes.
But maybe I think if, if Berrien County says something to them, it has a lot more weight than if you say something or I say
About
something.
my personal house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, right.
Yeah, okay.
And they do well. Every year we meet, there's different categories that you can fall in for your electric, to a large service, medium service, and we switch those. I mean, yearly, we're moving these back and forth to get the best rate for our certain buildings. So they do work with us to keep it as low as possible, but fact is, it still goes up. The other big part of this was contractual services at the jail. Back in 19 is when the jail project started, or was pretty much in full swing then. And we had a lot of contracts, PM contracts and other things that we did within the jail that we discontinued at that time because they were only going to be able to service half of what we needed. So it wasn't a good investment for us to put that money into it and just get half the service out. So once we're hoping this fall, we're back to 100% going at it, and then we'll have to put those contracts back in. So that was a lot of the increase there too. It really, for the most part, if you look at, if you look at 2020, which was a little, was that the first year we cut everything pretty good in 2020?
We cut it year after year, but
Yeah.
we cut hard in 2020.
Right. We did come close, even though that wasn't the right goal. We were only about 44,000 off of that. So, when you're talking a $2 million budget and you're off 44, it's not so bad. 187, not so good. And we've talked with Doug, we'll do whatever we need to do to make things work. A lot of capital projects, which we're coming up on, if we can get by, we'll get by. We'll push them, but there's some, and we did that pretty successfully for about the last 4 or 5 years. Last year, or this year, it kind of came back and bit us a little bit because we had all these boilers, and we knew boilers were the main issue. We were hoping they would fail to our liking, to our schedule. They didn't. They all just said right now. That's kind of the game you play. But we're always willing to work with whatever or whoever we need to do to make this work. Capital. Now this is prior to our
conversation.
Yeah, which some have moved, some have stayed. One was added. But these are things that have been on there, things that probably need to happen. Like I said, a lot of these we've pushed off. They're minor, these are minor general budget type projects here. But a lot of these we want to keep going. Juvenile, we're continually, they have a lot of wood doors down there, which to replace them all at once would just be an ungodly price. So we do it some every year.
Some doors?
Doors, yeah, we got a lot of wood doors down there, which are not preferred by the juvenile system. They like steel doors there. So we continue with those, and the windows too are not where they should be, tempered wise. So we replace those every year, just a little bit at a time, just to keep it moving.
Okay.
Keep going. And most of this other stuff, this is still in the general fund, so these are still smaller type things that we need to do. These are the big ones. These are the 401 or the capital funds. Tuck pointing, we had some issues. We got 2 issues with tuck pointing. One in South County, one here at the Avenue with the chimney. Now this building, the whole building's been tuck pointed probably 8 years ago, maybe, something like that. They didn't do the chimney. And in the chimney, you can see where it's kind of spalled up there, and there's some pieces falling, which we can't really have that. But we want to tie that into Niles. Niles had some stuff too. We just want to make it one fell swoop there. So that was something that we needed to do. Asphalt's always an issue. This one, I think we did push this one off. Yeah, I think we did. This is where all the construction's parked. It was scheduled to be replaced prior to that, the jail intake even taking place. So it'll have to happen, but we'll get by with doing it the following year, but it'll have to be done. Unit ventilators, those were, we want to keep those in there. Those are on that west wall of the jail. The design is just horrible. It's a direct shot from the wind coming off the lake into the actual unit. All the piping, everything is in the cement wall bricks, so it's horrible to try to service these things, and they do freeze up quite frequently. So we're going to continue on with those just because they're a big niche in the sheriff there if we don't. Some of the other stuff, I think the roof painting, I sold that one out, didn't I?
Push that.
I traded that one off. The roof's in good shape. That's at the juvenile. It's in good shape. It's not the prettiest thing. That's, but it's a solid roof. And really, that's about it.
I'd like to ask if there are any questions. Commissioner Meeks?
I have a question. You mentioned the utility cost going to the fund. And would it make sense for us, I think the utility companies have like a grant where we can replace the light bulbs and get some money back.
Oh, we do that. We actually, we replaced almost, the courthouse, I know we replaced, we had probably 21,000 for the total project. And I think we got, the rebate was almost 19,000.
Would it make sense for us to invest in solar? Would at the point to kind of subsidize what we're doing, and that will maybe help with the future increases?
I mean, solar is always a possibility. It's getting better and better. It's just, we live in a area that has one big cloud that starts in November and doesn't go away until.
I'm just saying that.
And a lot, I mean, it will feed the grid. We'll never have enough to do it solely on.
Yeah, we won't do it 100%, but would it make sense for us to just like think about?
With respect, I'm going to jump into this conversation.
Okay, I'd like to hear from you.
I spent over a decade working with South Haven's electric utility.
Yes.
And absolutely, taking a look at renewables does make sense. Looking at solar, looking at wind are definitely options. Typically, any federal or state subsidy that you will see is tied to your taxes. Since we are tax exempt, that's going to be one of the critical points in whether or not this would make any sense. If we can secure grant funding to help offset the capital costs, absolutely, it could make sense. The other side of the equation is net metering, essentially what you are getting paid for any power you produce that's going back into the system. That's typically paid at the wholesale rate, meaning what it costs the power company to actually generate the power, which is usually between 3.5 and 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So not a lot of money. Now with that said, I'll happily spend some time with Todd and we can take a look at what programs are out there. We do have a good established working relationship with the government affairs folks at AEP, and we can ask if they would have any interest in pursuing some type of partnership to use maybe as a pilot program.
I just say, just a little food for thought.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It always is. And it always came down to, from our perspective, that if there wasn't some kind of rebate, if there wasn't some kind of grant or something, it was, paid outright for the system, it just would have took too long to make it up.
I'm not so much interested in selling it, I'm basically using it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The cost for us to do it outright without a program or some kind of grant it'd be tough. It'll come down, but we always look at it. Utilities are a big part of my budget. They get quite a bit of it.
I would like to ask if on Zoom, are there any commissioners with questions for Director Johnson?
Yes.
Any questions? Thank you. You know what I want to know?
Sure.
If whatever goes on in any building all over Berrien County, they get in touch with you, with your department. And then you go and look, or someone goes and looks, and you decide if we can do it, or you have to contract it out?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, everything goes, our information flows the same way every time. It comes from either staff or employees. If it goes to a supervisor, it goes to the next step, goes all the way up to me and all the way back down. Happens very quickly because it's in a software system. So we'll see. I see every work order. We get about 4,000 a year. I'll see every one. If I see something I'll jump in. If I don't say anything, it just moves right back down and goes pretty quick. So, and some of the stuff is pretty, it's cold, it's hot, it's, squeaky.
I wanted to say our property, our buildings is just beautiful.
And,
as I ride, I look at the flowers and
well, and that has to with the guys. I mean, we took a lot of time getting these guys to buy into what they were doing. So that's what we had to do. And they've all done a great job. I mean, just a great job. So.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm okay with that. He answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good?
Thank you so much.
So that means I get the 200,000 that I'm over?
And what I wonder about, Administrator, is that
Yes, ma'am.
when these are not necessarily balancing or fitting within, you're going to work with them some more?
Yes.
Or you're going to give them what they're asking for?
Him?
Yeah.
He's gonna lose money.
Listen, we have a couple of people, we have favorites, give them anything they ask for. I don't know. Is that-
No love here
you know
at all.
that does or not. I think it's the IS department that gets in.
I got the HR director here, and I got harassment suit.
To the group, the question was, so what comes next? Without a doubt, the financial folks will be spending quite a bit of time working with me. We'll be going through each budget presentation, figuring out where our overages are, determining what, if anything, could potentially be cut, what needs to absolutely stay, and then we'll be working on finalizing a budget presentation for the overall board. At the same time, we'll be closely watching what the state of Michigan does with their budget adoption. Just yesterday, the legislature and the governor's office agreed on a framework that should minimize some of the cuts that we anticipate could be coming. So we still have quite a bit of work to do. But no matter what, if we are proposing some type of cut to individual departments, I'll personally reach out and explain the logic to the various department heads so that no one is surprised.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, Todd.
Our next scheduled appointment is Human Resources Department. And our director is Shelley.
So my budget is really straightforward. There's not much to it at all. Were you talking about?
Sorry, I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. As you can see, we're primarily an internal support for all county departments, we post jobs, I handle all employee benefits, payroll, pension, collective bargaining, that type of thing. The issues that we see that will be coming are obviously how, when, and if the salary study is implemented, and also we have new pension software. As you know, we're trying to get off the mainframe for all activities. The pension is still one of the programs on the mainframe. We've purchased the pension software and we're in the process of customizing it as much as possible since it's an off-the-shelf project or product. So that hopefully will go into place right around the first of the year. And then the salary study, like we say, is a big unknown on when, how, and if that will be implemented.
What contracts do you have this year, Shelley?
I had a large county unit up the end of this year, so it's the FOPLC, the Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council. It's about 180 or so employees of the county through all county departments.
Thank you.
Yep. As you can see with our budget, it's very simplistic. There's not a lot. Personnel costs are what they are. Materials and supplies are simply our office supplies. Purchase services are forms for like W-2s, 1099-Rs, that type of thing. So again, not a lot of discretion there. I mean, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you guys have, but it's a very, there's not a lot of extras or frills in the budget at all.
So I think it is worth pointing out just the hideous colors that Shelley opted to use.
Yeah,
terrible. It's tough to look at, I know.
It's not as bad as some of them that are coming up with like some nasty blue. Green is the color of money, let's be reminded of that.
A little purple.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I surprised Shelley with asking her to come down a day early. She's here, she's presented all the information, but it's also one of the shorter budget presentations. Do you have any questions for her?
I do.
Go.
You wrote to us, and I had made myself a note to ask you about where we didn't have to take money out of our, that payroll thing, and you said, and I didn't know the other end of it, that yes, we could do it and not make those deductions from our payroll. But next year you'd have to get it back, plus what they'd have to do. Who thought that up?
This was a presidential memorandum that allowed for the voluntary suspension of the employee portion of the Social Security tax.
Yeah.
So the employees pay 6.2% of their paycheck towards Social Security. So this would be a temporary suspension of that. The county has opted not to do that. There is some risk in that. There's the risk that if the president is reelected in November, he may forgive part of that. So we may have some employees who are upset that, they weren't included in that. If he's not elected, I'm sure that will definitely have to be paid back. The IRS guidance right now is that it will be paid back starting January 1, 2021 through April 30th of 2021. That would be a really big deal for our payroll system because obviously most salary increases go into effect January 1. So we wouldn't be able to just simply double the deduction because your salary was a different rate from September 1st through December 31st. So it's almost like you'd have to do a hand calculation for each person or take their wages, and Ben can do it because he's a wizard with all that kind of stuff, but it's not as easy as it sounds to recoup it back. So that's another reason why we decided not to do it. And I just don't think a temporary suspension now versus doubling up later doesn't make a lot of sense.
I don't think that's helping anybody that much to go through that process.
Right, I think what this was really designed for were people who were truly off the payroll
Yeah.
for a significant number of, months, weeks, whatever, due to COVID, if their company shut down, that type of thing, to let them try to catch up, but.
But to have to pay it back is not helpful.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons we opted out.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Any questions from commissioners on Zoom? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Can we get that on the Dropbox screen? Great.
I asked Karen if you had anything for you.
Go green.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so to keep the sessions moving, we're going to have Annette jump into the hot seat. I am reaching out to individual department heads, trying to get them over here earlier.
Okay.
So we are going to be out of order, but we're going to continue plowing through.
And you said Shelley was going to be tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
But I don't see how she's listed. What is she listed
She's
as?
listed as first thing as tomorrow morning.
Personnel.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'll move on here. So I did, because I realized this was stuck in my box, I was doing this remotely from home, and it didn't go. So I did make copies really quick so that you all had it. Because I didn't realize it was stuck in there.
Hey, stop it.
we got you a break like the Dairy Commission.
What's Shelley's last name? Is it Jasper? Thank you. I wanted to say it, but I wasn't sure.
All right, so it's the little arrow thing, right? Okay, so I'll be presenting to you the administration department, your board budget, as well as corporate counsel, with Ryan on the assist there. So our purpose is basically, we're reminded of what the purpose of mission of Berrien County is, and of course, everybody's very familiar with what that mission is, and that's what we follow. The common theme with all of these budgets has been not knowing what's going to happen because of COVID-19, and not knowing how the corporate counsel position is going to play out with the Board of Commissioners. That can affect both your budget as well as corporate counsel's budget. What I've done here is plug money in as a subcontractor on the board's budget, but we've also funded corporate counsel because we didn't know where we were going to go. And of course, then whichever way we decide, we'll adjust them accordingly.
So we're gonna show a lot more for lawyers than we really intend to spend.
Exactly.
It's okay.
I totally forgot about Julie Piak. Julie was going to join us. The MSU extension is part of our, as part of the board's budgets, that you guys do that work plan every year that you approve, and that just sort of outlines what the contracted services are here. And then there's a little bit of money built in there for telephone out there, travel for the one employee, copier charges and that kind of thing. So there's not a whole lot built in there, but the majority of it is their contractual services that we fund. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. Okay. Corporate counsel, so this is kind of what I was talking about. So we went ahead and you'll see in the 221 proposed, there's a full salary in there. Office supplies, I kept that about the same as what it was last year. I don't like to give up my office supplies, Doug. In books, we actually ran into some problems, so I had to adjust the money a couple of years, so that's why I've left that at the level that it is. Again, that's going to change if we don't fill that position, or if that person chooses a different subscriptions than what we had from the previous corporate counsel. And then that legal services line item was put in there years ago. It's a agreement that we had with the drain commissioners if our corporate counsel had to have something reviewed. It's done a couple of years ago by a previous corporate counsel. So I reduced it. It used to be at 10. We put it down to 1, but you can see that it didn't actually get touched really in 2019. Dues and memberships, that I reduced back to the 19 actual. That phone is the office of the corporate counsel, as well as, we were funding a cell phone on that as well. That figure kind of comes from information systems. And then travel, of course, is pretty standard. And training, we didn't touch that in 19, but I didn't want to build that, not have something there just in case if we do get a new attorney, they may need to do some kind of training or something they may prefer.
Is Betsy part of this budget? Or some portion of Betsy?
She's in Shelley's.
Shelley's, okay.
Yeah, so this is just the position of corporate counsel.
Another thing, changes over time.
Right, yeah. And then there's just the postage and filing fees are just some things we may need, and sometimes when there's certain cases that we have to file for, we have to do some mailings or that kind of thing, that's where that would come out. You'll see that in your budget as well, in postage and filings. All right. So the administrator's budget's pretty small, kind of like HR's. There's a salary and wages, that would be mine and Brian's. And then, so the biggest part of all of it is salary. We upped the dues and memberships just a little bit from something that Brian may want to be a part of that we hadn't previously funded for. And then, telephone cell, same thing. Our phones in our offices are under there, as well as Brian's cell phone charges. And then the travel is with Buck Kids contracted, so that's what that comes out of. That was a part of his contract. And then just employee training and improvements. I left that in there just in case there's some things that he would like to attend that we're not used to having in there. So your budget was a little larger, I couldn't fit it all on one screen. So this is just the salary and benefits part. That has your regular salary, your per diems is listed in there, not the travel part, but just the per diem. And then all the benefits there. And then built into your budget is, we kind of use yours as a pull-all if we need to, because the other ones are so small. So in, you'll see there's contractual, or office, I'm sorry, let's go back up. Office supplies, like I said, I don't like to short that line item, so I did put that back at, I'm sure I'll get cut when I do the review, but food supplies is when you guys have meetings for your, like, strategic planning, or we used to do some stuff during, for your pension board, that kind of thing. That's what comes out of that. And then books, we have occasionally bought the, as they come out with new versions of the, it's a Michigan, Michigan State University puts it out, and it's the office, it's kind of like how to do board, it's a commissioner's guide is what it is. And we bought that occasionally, so that's what that money usually spent for. And then, so the contractuals there, audit, that comes from Doug, that's out of your line item.
That's under
Pardon?
That's under close. I don't know. I didn't give it.
You didn't give me the right number. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you for the number. So that's, that was what I changed. The consulting services, I'm gonna go to Brian to submit, because we did not have that in there in the past, and he wants to address that.
All right, so Madam Chair, members of the board, one of the first things that I did when I started here in July was meet with each and every member of the board and just had a private conversation with each of you about where you'd like to see the board heading over the next 12 months. A common theme that I heard from each of you was the importance of true strategic planning. And what I had just gone through in the last year and a half was working with a consultant named Jim Hettinger. Jim was the longtime CEO of Battle Creek Unlimited. He prepared the strategic plan for economic development services for the greater South Haven area. I've shopped the idea of doing strategic planning for Berrien County to a couple of different consultants. Jim is the one that I spent the most time reviewing this with. I've plugged in $25,000 just as a budget placeholder. If the board wishes to move forward with strategic planning, that should more than cover any of the costs associated with that process. I would not propose that we get into strategic planning until till the new commissioners take office. You would really start the process in January, and between now and then, I would be working to put out an RFP to actually collect proposals from a few different vendors to firm up the number, firm up the process, and then educate you all on what we're going to be doing. For right now, I'm asking that you just hold 25 grand as a budget placeholder so that as we get into the new fiscal year, it's something that could be considered by the board. Could the number be knocked down? Possibly, but I think it's a reasonable number, and that I think out of the 12 of you, I think 11 said strategic planning is something that was very important to pursue.
Okay. So that next one is the legal services. That's what we talked about previously. So you'll see that that's quite a bit higher than what we had in the past. And that is because I've plugged an amount in there based upon what we're doing this year. That obviously can be reduced if you decide to fill that with an in-house staff person. Your dues and memberships of the Michigan Association of Counties, Michigan Township Association, the telephone. I guess I don't know it.
What's that?
For the board. Is it this, it can't be this room.
And I think you have
Did I-
admin and, the board and corporate council together on this.
Oh, in that line item?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all of general fund.
I pulled that in there, okay, in error, apologize, that should not be in there. You'll see the cable, we dropped that, we were paying for a cable service out at the, conference center, and so they've discontinued that, so that's why that's not there anymore.
Is it gone?
And of course, the travel item is another one that's gonna be affected by COVID, and actually going back to your per diem. So we kicked up there where some of our commissioners had 2 and 3 pages of per diems because they were attending the EOC meetings and they were calling, state of emergency meetings and that kind of thing. And so the travel part has gone down quite a bit because you guys aren't here a whole lot, but the per diems has gone up a little bit. But anyways, I kind of went in there along the lines of what we had there in 2019, but obviously that could change. The American Express billing is that's a through line that we have to have if our American Express bill that comes into financial services is not balanced, then we have to pull from here and there, and that's the line we use to do that for the whole American Express bill. It's not for your department, but we just needed a place to put that, and that's why that one's in there. Your play training, I did bump that up a little bit. We always have more training usually when there's the possibility of new commissioners, and with that being an odd year next year, that's why I plugged that in there. And the postage and down there a little bit, there's filing and recording fees. That's the same thing as if we have to do that for a legal case or register of deeds. We've had to pay them before if we filed something in their office. And so that's where those two things will kind of go together a little bit. Copier charges, you guys are getting a little bit of that fee as well. That's kind of spread out throughout the whole county. The advertising, we use that for the minutes. We have to publish a little blurb in the Berrien County Record every week that says the minutes are available and here's where you can go to find them. That comes out of your budget. And then also if we do any, when we advertise for corporate counsel or the administrator, those kinds of things come out of that line item. If we needed any office equipment repair done, that's what the $50 is for. And then it looks like we're getting an amount also for the copier for the rent and lease of that. Again, that's spread out throughout the county.
No, that is for yours. That is 12 months
Mine.
versus 2 in 2019.
What mine?
The one that's upstairs.
The big copier, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But everybody gets that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
right?
Everybody
Everybody
gets
gets,
ours.
yes,
For the
everybody
copier
gets
thing,
everybody's.
yes, I apologize.
That's
My
okay.
mistake. My mistake.
Well, it can't be my scanner that I just got done.
No,
Okay,
but it's 12 months versus 2019 was only 2 months.
gotcha. And then the filing fees, fines and penalties, that's all pretty standard. Your meeting expenses, internal. It's not food, it would be if you had anything else associated with the meeting. would get plugged into that line there. And then the miscellaneous, we usually do a photo every 2 years for the board, every new board, and elected officials. That's kind of where that comes out of, is out of that line there. Oh, is she? Okay. Let me, I'm gonna let Julie in. She wants to talk to you a little bit about the issue, and then I think I was down at question and answer thing. Okay.
Madam Chair, Julie Piak from Michigan State University Extension was scheduled to be part of this presentation. She's going to be joining via Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
There she is. And next.
Good morning, Julie.
It's here, okay. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
How impressive that you're so far ahead of schedule.
Yes. I'm thankful that you could join us. We would like very much for you to make your presentation for Michigan State University Extension.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I want to let you know that some commissioners are here in the room at the administration building and some are on Zoom. So please proceed.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you, Annette, for pulling up my budget for the commissioners to take a look at. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure this looks like ours. No, this is not ours. This is not my budget. This is the commissioners, correct? Here we go. Yeah, there we go. So for 2021, the MSU extension is not asking for any increases, given the fact of this tenuous situation that all of us in the public sector are facing with funding. And so we went ahead with 2021, not asking for any increases for staff or in the base assessment. So we're going with status quo. Just to let you know, the office is open out there on Hillendale. We are seeing customers on an appointment basis. Staff are going in and working from the office when they need to be there. As you are all well aware of, we don't have the greatest broadband throughout the county of Berrien. So some of our folks in the hitherlands need to go into the office to be able to use the technology that's available because they're doing statewide or countywide webinars and they need that good connection. We've had quite a few kind of cool things happening out of the Berrien office where we've had full week-long camps being broadcast from there with Deb Barrett and Kelly Stelter and their team across the state. So being hosted by Berrien County. So anyway, just a little update on what's happening out there. I welcome any questions or anything like that. What happens, Brian, for your reference, is that we usually do this budget conversation, and then once things are settled with the budget, then I present the memorandum of agreement, which is presented to the board, and typically I give my annual report at that same time. Of course, that happens typically in December. I'm not sure what the schedule will look like this year, but once the budget is adopted and things are good to go, I'll submit that memorandum for your review and signing, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Julie, thank you very much. Madam Chair, do you have any questions for Julie from Michigan State University Extension?
I do not. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioners on Zoom, any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair, if you would like, I can have Caitlin from 911 jump into the queue. Yes. She's ready, and we'll continue moving ahead.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much.
Via Zoom.
And tell me her name is?
Caitlin Sampson.
Oh, she was at our finance meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
She did, yeah.
Her last name is?
Sampson.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So while we're waiting for Caitlin, Ben, would you be willing to call Caitlin and just let her know that I just emailed her, but she might not have seen that. If she's ready to jump into the queue, let's go ahead and get her started. While we're waiting for the next presentation, we've had some spirited communication going on between this room and the Drain Commissioner's office. We do have the materials. Drain Commissioner staff has been emphatic that they turned in their materials. I'm not sure what occurred, but I know that he and his team are eager to present information. Since we've moved Shelley from tomorrow to today, I would ask the board if they would be okay with me sliding him into tomorrow's presentation list.
And you're looking for the proposal that they sent? Or we do have it now?
I don't have it yet.
In my opinion, if we don't have it before we leave, I think we're wasting our time.
I will work on getting that, so you email it to me?
I emailed it to you, I found it.
Okay, so let me get
We'll push it
911
out.
going and then I'll go grab it.
Yep. So,
That would be fine, we do have it done.
They placed it in a Dropbox. Unfortunately, we didn't know they placed it in a Dropbox, so.
What is that, in that box outside?
so
No.
put simply,
In a system.
the file was stored onto the server. I would say 99% of the various departments communicated it directly to Annette, to Doug, to
That was
me.
the instruction.
So at this point, to avoid further discussions, I think it would make sense just to pull them into tomorrow's schedule.
I have no
There's
problem,
no
I'll
date
give
on
us the
it.
information then.
Right.
There's no date on it
If they're not getting.
today?
Caitlin is on.
Madam Chair,
Sorry.
we have Caitlin Samsel from 911.
Hello, and welcome. We are ready to begin, if you would go ahead with your budget for 911.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't know you were ready for me to go ahead?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes, please, for our budget hearing, if you would present the 911 budget, we appreciate it.
So Caitlin, are you sharing your screen or am I sharing my screen?
Either way, you can share if you'd like to.
She's got it up now.
Does she have, no, that's me.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good. You can just
Okay.
talk and we'll move through it.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next one then. Thank you. Good morning. I think most of you have met me at one time or another. I have taken over from Dave, as you're all aware. I have my assistant director here, but unfortunately she's off camera, so you can't see her right now, Jennifer Flick. So as you can see in the presentation, that's our mission statement that's up there right now. We provide service for both the 911 and non-emergency phone lines for the police, fire, and ambulance in our county, with the exception of Niles City. Moving into next year, our opportunities are to increase and continue to streamline our dispatching and interoperability through the continued transition to an all 800 megahertz system off of the VHF. We're also going to be doing our scheduled upgrade for our CAD, which is our computer aided dispatch. And then we're hoping to improve our employee engagement and wellness through various efforts within the department. As far as our risks and issues, as you see, our staffing levels are unfortunately pretty low right now. We have 5 vacancies currently. One is just very recent, moved to a different department in the county. So currently we have 1 supervisor vacancy and 4 dispatcher vacancies. And then we have 3 that are in training. Normally we have 33 people on the floor. And then we have a quality assurance supervisor, which was added last year as well. And as you can see, the leadership transitionary period, me stepping into my role, our new assistant director, our new QA supervisor, and then we'll have a new supervisor to backfill that position as well. So there are, of course, challenges involved with that. And then as we get these new technologies, all of our staff learning and adapting to those. And then our challenge is going to be continued with the radio system, particularly in the southeast corner of our county and along the state line. That's partly due to the VHF and the transition to the 800 megahertz system. We are moving forward with Critical Connect, which I believe Dave may have talked a little bit about last year, which is going to connect us with Indiana as well and help with our fire and police and EMS communication. If you would please advance, Annette. Thank you. So this is our overall budget numbers. So the revenue comes from our 911 millage, which was just renewed this year at 0.45 mils. We also have the local surcharge, which is 42 cents a line. And then we have the state surcharge, which is a quarter a line. And as you can see, then our operational numbers are a little bit higher. That was a planned use there. That's due to a number of factors, particularly with advancing our 800 megahertz coverage, our CAD upgrade, and using some of those funds that we had set aside for those projects. Then, Annette, if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. So our personnel costs here are, of course, our biggest part of our budget. And those have increased. There is a typo on there, I apologize. The quality assurance supervisor position was added last summer in 2019. Like I had mentioned, we currently have the 5 staff vacancies. So that necessitates a substantial increase in our overtime costs to meet our minimum staffing levels compared to the comparison from 2019. It's been high this year as well. And we anticipate that, unfortunately, to continue into next year as we get those staffing levels back up to par. And then the increased benefits costs that all of the departments are dealing with as well. And I'm just laying that out there if there are any specifics for you guys that you'd like to see.
Caitlin, may I ask you a question? Maybe Yarborough, are the 911 employees in a union?
They are in union, yes. The supervisors are in a unit, and then the dispatchers and call takers are in a separate unit.
Thank you. Continue.
And Caitlin, how many FTEs do you have?
We have, on the floor, we have 33 people on the floor that are full-time. 6 of those are supervisors, and then 27 are the dispatchers and call takers. And then we have the administrative staff, so myself, our assistant director, then we have our PSEP technology specialist, data service specialist, that's Tanny Smith. And then we have right now a part-time position that is getting transferred over to our full-time PSEP technician position, which is actually through IS.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Continue.
Then onto our purchase services and charges, highlighted this line as well. This is mostly due to an increase in normal maintenance and service contract costs. So that's to take care of our radio systems, both VHF and 800 right now. And then also our phone system. In addition to our phone line costs, which as you can imagine, being a 911 center is a good portion. We also have now the fiber link for our new tower site in Watervliet that will close the loop for our communication network on the 800 system. So that's a big benefit to our county. Then the state is going to be getting to charge us co-location fees for our VHF equipment that resides on the state sites, on their towers. And that's going to be that last line there that you see, the rent lease of equipment. Any questions that I could answer off of that one? No? Okay. All right, then for the transfers out, that's those wireless and 800 megahertz fund that I was mentioning earlier. So we've planned, we've set those aside for these projects for advancing the 800 megahertz system, getting off of the VHF, and then for upgrading our CAD system. So those projects are kind of already in the works and moving forward into next year, carrying over. Also, we changed a little bit. That's why you see such a large percentage of increase. Last year, there was a change in how we covered the costs of court lien personnel. So they made the transition to now it's a transfer out instead of us directly doing the personnel costs for our department here. So you see 180,255 is the court lien personnel cost. That's the one full-time position, and then their part-time positions for court entered warrants and PPOs. They also do the live scan. And then we have that PSEP technician cost to IS, which is the new position that was added on at the beginning of 2020. Would you please advance? Thank you. Then this is our capital and project requests. Those first three, like I mentioned, are the carryovers for the transition off of the VHF to the 800 system and the signal enhancement. And then those next two lines there, the Aegis to Enterprise, that's our CAD project, moving that forward. And that is set to be implemented and go live next summer. So we're pretty excited about that. Then we have some of these smaller projects there that we've requested to move to a scheduling software. We currently use Excel and carbon copy forms, paper forms, email. It's very labor intensive and time intensive. And a scheduling software would definitely enable us to move forward off of that system into something that's more accessible to our staff and beneficial hours wise and workload wise for administration as well. Then 24-hour use chairs, just the replacement of our equipment. And then with everything moving remote, the addition of administrative laptops, that's both the hardware and the software for that, that came from IS. That would replace our desktops.
May I ask, how many laptops and chairs are you looking at to buy?
That's just two. That's one for me as the director, and then one for the assistant director.
Of the laptops?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, any questions here? Any questions from Zoom?
No?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You're officially back on schedule. The next would be the records department.
All right.
And we are now off just by 2 minutes, so.
And who is records?
Chris Martin.
Oh, hello. Oh, Mr. Shells.
He's actually on here. I'm trying to bring him up.
Madam Chair, if there's nothing else for Caitlin, I'll tell her just to go ahead and log off.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very
Caitlin,
much.
thank
Have a
you.
good day.
And Kurt's last name?
Thank you.
Hartman.
You guys see and hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, forward to Kurt, Director Records. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Hang on. Just a minute, Chris.
One moment.
Okay.
You got to get on the big screen. There you go.
Good to go?
Yeah, you're ready. You can go now.
Okay, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Hartman. I'm the records manager out at the 2100 Empire Building in Benton Harbor. Our purpose statement is to provide a high level of service to all county departments in meeting their needs for record storage, retrieval, preservation, and destruction. We do all four of these things for virtually all departments in Berrien County, just at differing levels. And we take a lot of pride in how we do that, making sure people get what they need. Opportunities, the biggest opportunity I'd like to see us pursue is for more digital document scanning. We'd like to maybe branch out into, say, the treasurer's office and do some of their foreclosure files. We're currently doing the sheriff's department and the circuit court. And obviously there's a lot there with those two departments, and there's only 4 of us. So that's why I put the notation about where staff and cost allow, because it does cost money to scan, and you do need staff to do it. Risks and issues. The biggest one is storage space out in the warehouse. This is ongoing. It's always going to be an ongoing challenge. As long as we adhere to the retention schedules that the state puts out, and we continue to scan the documents that we have coming in and get rid of the paper off of the shelf, we should be in good shape. This is another year, this is another year where I think we're kind of going sideways. We're bringing in about the same amount of records that we're getting rid of, and that's a good thing. If we start seeing years where that isn't happening and we're starting to lose shelf space, I'll be sure to let you know, and we'll have to brainstorm on what to do about that. But for now, we're in good shape as far as that goes. As far as the budget, the only budget that I have in my relatively small department is the general fund. I did meet the budget guidance by $637. And the reason for that is because storage boxes or banker boxes that we provide for all county departments, we've got a good stock of them, and I don't think we will need to buy any this year. And those range anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a year. So with that cost going down, it's helping to make up for the increase in the purchased services that we pay. That would include our mobile shredding service that goes around to all the buildings and destroys confidential records, as well as the shredding that they do here in our department. But the biggest increase in that line was for software maintenance. And that was given to me by estimate by Chris Swihart and IS. But again, that's all worth the shredding, the scanning, it's all worth it. It helps us to do what we do out here, and helps us to continue to have a high level of service, we hope, to everybody we serve. Just to sum up, we do see a 6.9% increase in the overall budget. That includes personnel and everything lumped in. I didn't have any capital requests, and the increase that you see there is entirely due to personnel costs. We have the same staff here that we've had for about 6 years now, and we have very little turnover and 4 pretty happy employees. So I'd like to keep it that way. And that's about all I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Chigurh?
Chris, great work out there. This is just kind of a personal question. Is there anybody in the Twin Cities doing document shredding?
You know, Kent Records Management was doing it for a while, and then I thought they went out of business, but I'm not positive. The reality, when we bid out the contract that we're using now, the company that we go with now was far and above cheaper than anybody else by far. And the reason for that is that they allow our staff to assist them in the shredding, which we would like to do anyway. But by us offering our staff, it keeps those costs way down. Like, for example, they would charge somebody $5 to $10 to shred one box. But if we pull the box down from our shelf and give it to them and they shred it, they charge $3. So it's a really good deal.
I think it's,
Mine's personal.
well, I think we all have, you know, the reason I asked the question is that Jill Adams and her recycling people do not accept records for shredding anymore. I think most of us that spent the last 6 months alone at home cleaning closets have got stacks of confidential documents that we have no way of getting rid of, short of sitting there and just tearing page by page. So you know, any guidance you could give us and we could give to our residents would be helpful, if at all.
Really, really true.
So
what we have is We have the confidential shredding bins at the different departments. Those can be used, and those are emptied once a month. If there's also anything that they would entrust us and our staff to shred, they can send it out to us here at Empire any day of the week, and it will be shredded within 24 hours. That's always an option. We have an industrial size shredder out here.
We don't want to,
Right, yeah.
we don't want to be in the county stuff, but I need help.
Okay, thank you. It's just a topic of
That's a
conversation.
good question.
Thank you.
But some things you can't. Zoom, commissioners, do you have any questions? Do you vote yes for shredding?
No,
No, we don't want to do it through the county and do some kind of. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Chris.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
members of the board, the next presentation will be animal control. Tiffany from Animal Control is on her way over here now. We should have just a couple of minutes before the next presentation. If anyone needs to take a brief break, feel free.
Is that our last presentation?
Yes.
If I can say also, if you check your emails, and this is for everybody on Zoom and in here, if you check your emails, I believe that you may have a presentation.
You just sent something a little bit ago.
I forwarded it from Doug because I had to do it on my phone because I don't have access to my email on here. So if you want to check and see if it's there.
Is that the drain?
I've seen that. Yeah, and I've notified the drain commissioner 8:30 tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Yeah, this is from the drain meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
I noticed that.
So you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Keep going, 'cause I
I'm
think it was
gonna
a phone.
mute us.
Annette?
Yes?
You're so important, you have two of you on the screen.
I'm right.
You're kind of a big deal.
No, I'm not. I have to run the PowerPoint for Zoom so that you guys can see it. And that's why I had to bring in my other computer as well.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Members of the board, while we're waiting for the next presentation, I did communicate with Brian Bailey this morning. He's been just going back and forth with the Army Corps of Engineers, the City of St. Joe, on the vandalism that occurred on the pier over the past weekend. Brian's going to attend Thursday's Board of Commission meeting just to present you all with what happened and then what's the planned solution. So I know this is a bit of a hot topic.
I kind of heard it on the news. What were the words? They said they thought it was racial. Was it bad? Tell me. I can't stand it. Say it.
You're on a public.
Yeah, nothing good.
I have pictures.
We'll
Their pictures
They're
are,
on Facebook.
yeah, their pictures are.
So just go to Facebook what?
we'll pull them up and show them to you.
Pull them up, let us see.
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate against police and.
But they said there were cameras there, hopefully.
Yeah, so City of St. Joe's been actively reviewing their camera feed. The county staff has also been reviewing camera feed. Apparently, we had a camera that was actually down, so limit on what they were able to find.
I don't think she's gonna.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Is she here?
No, not yet. I just know when she does come.
Oh, okay.
Grab my crap out of the way.
There she is.
She didn't bring a dog.
Yeah, where's your shadow?
I'm gonna have to go. I'm not exactly doing real good right now. No, I just went and got an EKG done.
Oh.
I think it's my gallbladder.
Oh.
I have a doctor's appointment at 1, so just bear with me. You're gonna go right over there, Byron?
Come on down.
Oh. You do that. Okay, so we'll
give you a quick.
It's not, it's pretty easy. I mean, yeah, just bear with me.
Is you want a bottle of water?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
Yeah, everything's pretty cut and dry for the most part. Everything looked really good, so.
Good morning, and welcome to the budget hearing. I pray that you will be well.
I'll know this afternoon. Like I said, I went and been having problems for a couple days, and I think it's my gallbladder, but I don't know. Your mission's up there, so we're moving it forward for you.
Tiffany, you're going to speak towards that green light. This is being streamed live, so just know that. You can pull your mask if that helps you to present.
Just put on my spectacles. All right. Good morning, everybody. Like I said, bear with me. Try to make it quick and go through these. We put a little information in here as far as what our mission is, and I'm sure everybody's had the chance to look through this for the most part, so I won't go and read everything. Get to the major points that are important. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide. One thing you'll note here, and this is our staff, we are a little bit low on our kennel workers right now, which is one thing if there's anything you guys could do for me is look for those youngsters that are looking for a part-time job, because we need some kennel help right now. Okay, the next slide. Keeping it busy. Yes, we're still around 6,500 complaints a year. Our population still averages, from what I last looked, was right around 155,000, 585 square miles. Our operating hours are still the same, so that's good. Until October, our summer hours will go back down to, we close at 4:30 on Wednesday nights. Go ahead. So, good thing, one of our opportunities that should be coming up, we're going to try to get regular about it. We're going to do our first TNR, which is a trap neuter return clinic. The vets are going to donate time. We have all the supplies, everything has been donated. The vets are going to come in. We're going to do Sunday, November 8th will be the first one we're going to try to do. We have a willing person that is going to be what you call a community caregiver. They are the liable person that they already have the housing, they have the food. So now what we do is trap about 20 to 25 cats, and we will spay and neuter them, return them back to that property where their ears will be tipped, they'll have a rabies shot, and they cannot reproduce. That way, more feral cats will not move into that area. Over a course of time, we're hoping, because local vets are willing to donate we're gonna do it on Sunday mornings, because that seems to be the only free time anybody has. We're gonna try to hit
if we could do at least 3 a year, it's gonna take a few years, but it should help. I mean, the biggest epidemic that we really have is cats. So we're trying to do something. There's a lot of education that we're gonna have to give out to people as far as how resilient cats are, the fact that what's called the vacuum effect. A lot of people think, oh, bring us your cats, you deal with it, and that'll be done. Well, no, what happens at that point is more cats just move into that area. So by neutering them and returning them, they live their life out right there. They have housing, they have food, they have care, and then they can't reproduce, and more cats will not come into the area. So that's one positive thing we have going. Yes.
Just a question on that. How's the people trapping the feral cats? I mean, how do you know where your 20 animals are gonna come from for these clinics?
What we do is we go out, we talk to people, we kind of look at the specs as far as property, township ordinances, city ordinances, where there's really no laws on cats. Unless you own a cat per household, there's different ordinances that say you can have so many per household. So what we've done now is you go and you find people. Our first person actually has a little bit of property that she owns, and she already has the gentleman that makes the dog houses also makes cat houses. So she has the cat houses out there, and she signs a liability waiver that I have already that says she will do A, B, and C. So we go out, we trap the cats, which we won the traps from a grant that we got. So we have.
So you're trapping, not a private resident?
No, not a private resident.
Okay, good.
We actually have somebody to volunteer and help us that goes around and does this kind of thing with other different rescues and things like that. So she's willing to help us go out. We're gonna start a couple weeks ahead of time. We'll trap the cats, bring them into our facility, and they can only go in the isolation room. They can't come in the actual animal control building because they're not vaccinated. That way, in that Sunday morning, we do the procedure with the vets. Dr. Holly Schaefer is gonna be our first vet that's gonna come in and help. Then Monday, after they rest and recoup, we turn around Monday, we reevaluate them, and then we return them back to where they came from.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, potential risk and issues. Now, this was one of the things I was talking about. Basically, our staffing is very low. We have to be very careful. MDAR did come in and do a surprise inspection. We had no issues. We passed with flying colors. It was great. The only concern that she brings up is that, you know, Berrien County does have a huge facility. We take in a lot of animals. We're low on kennel staff right now, and if it gets to a point where we can't care for them, we have to turn away animals. So we have to try really hard to get, I think with COVID and everything going on, things are just a mess all over. So we're trying really hard to get some staff in there. It's hard because, you know, it's $9.65 an hour. You know, people, and it's only 20 hours a week or 1,000 hours a year, so it's hard. A lot of my staff have left for full-time jobs, which I can't blame them. I'm not going to stop them. So we're low. We need probably at least 4 more kennel staff in there ASAP. On to the next thing. So positive vibes, yes. Biggest adoption part of the year really, you know, was going through the summer. We actually did it. Granted, it was only a half a day, but we emptied our adoption floor. We did phenomenal this year. We hustled and hustled, and I think a lot of people had the time to stay home, come adopt an animal, train the animal, spend time with the animal, and knock on wood again, we have not gotten any returns so far with people going back to work and things like that, which we were worried about. So we actually managed, we were able to empty our adoption floor for a half a day, and then, well, it was time to move more up. So, because people are coming in and looking, they're always looking. Our cats, on average, we were about at 23%, which is good. Our adoption rates are up to 62. It's always going to be a struggle with cats, but we have a lot of rescues now that are on board with coming to take our animals from us. Have them, take them. So dog adoptions, again, we're doing great. We're at 82%, and that kind of fluctuates depending on, you know, this is only from May through July. It was higher at some times, and maybe right around that, you know, in different, we do quarterly like reports, so. Okay, next. So looking at the general and special revenue funds, did we meet the guidance? Yes, we did. So the only one I have a concern with, we can go to, what's our next slide? This one right here this was our general fund. We did not meet guidance, and the issue that came up with this was my volunteer coordinator runs out of hours. This is her 3rd year. She is out of hours again. And this is where we had to take and borrow the money to pay her through the temp agency. So that was where our lack was of hours, which I'm working on trying to remedy that situation at this point. Next, special revenue funds, we did very good on as well too. We're taking care of that as far as, I mean, everything's working out good. I'm getting the department caught up on everything. We have vests, radios, software system, things like that. So we did meet our budget guidance on that as well.
How many new field guys do you have out there?
Field guys, as far as officers, I have 4 full-time and 2 part-time.
How, but we've had some retirements.
Yep, Dan Atherton retired, and the new guy that replaced him is, boy, was that a godsend. He is phenomenal. His name's Devin, so he replaced him.
Okay.
All right, so the only difference really with our capital projects, the request, all funds, what I'm looking for are our front office radio has been malfunctioning for a couple years now. It's really getting rough, so I got a hold of Sergeant Bush, and he gave me a quote on a radio for the front office, which is our main dispatch radio up in the front office. The other thing you're probably going to ask me about, which is called it's a livestock emergency tool. It's called a captive bolt gun. What this is a tool and I'm surprised we don't have one in the county of Berrien. I got in touch with the MSU extension who does all the livestock trainings with cattle, pigs, cows, things like that. Rather than us have to pull out an actual gun if it comes need be, or try to get a vet out there, because let me tell you how hard it is when 130 swine spill. Some of them are suffering, cows are tipped, you're inside a semi. If you have to dispatch humanely because they're suffering, dispatch an animal, that's what this captive bolt gun is for. We definitely need one in this county. It would be a greatly between the fire departments, Beth Ferry, who runs the MSU extension. I'm not sure if you're familiar who she is, but this is definitely a tool that we could use in case, I said again, it's more humane. Sometimes you can't even lethally inject these animals with the situations, high intensity, anxiety, things going on. I mean, my first spill was that 130, it was 19 of them ended up perishing, and they suffered, those pigs. So instead of them suffocating because they're laying on top of each other, things like that, we can use this bolt gun to humanely dispatch them.
Wouldn't you need 4 of them, 1 for each field officer?
No, it wouldn't be used. We would just take it to the scene if it happens. And like if there's an incident.
They'll still use their firearms for individual situations.
Individual situations, yes, but this kind of thing, especially when you get that many people at a scene, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of things going on. They're very safe. I can get you some pictures of these so you can look in them a little bit more. It's a bolt, basically. He humanely euthanizes them. So the only difference that we really had between as you can see, the 2019 and the 2020 proposed, I can't talk today, is we have software now. And I believe from looking at my budget, it goes up a little bit every year because that's just an increase. Things that go up. That was the biggest difference that we've had, was the software, which is actually in the long run, from talking to other counties that use the software that we have too, the online sales should compensate some of that cost because that helps the revenue that comes in. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Just for point of reference, last quarter, how many dogs and cats came in? If you, just off the top, roughly.
Came in, like monthly, we average about, like walk in the door, probably every 3 months, right around 300 dogs and about, they're pretty close, about 300 dogs, 300 cats, usually more cats than dogs, obviously, because cats come in, we get them in totes. People walk in the front door with them. So we're trying.
Great, thank you.
Any questions from Zoom commissioners?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care of
Hope you're
yourself.
feeling better.
Oh, I'll find out at 1 o'clock.
Keep your voice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we've completed today's list. For tomorrow, we do have some of the longer presentations. The Drain Commissioner will then be followed by the Health Department, then on to Prosecutor and on. So tomorrow, I'm not sure we'll be able to wrap that session up as early as we're going to today, but we are on target to get through all of these.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you all.
I also just got the printing, I will be sending you the printing budget presentation here shortly, as soon as I get upstairs. Just so-
What then, please?
Printing?
Printing, and she's scheduled for 11 tomorrow.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, if there's no questions, I'd recommend that you consider adjourning today's session.
Good. Thank you. This is adjourned. This meeting is adjourned. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you all.
Ben, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Annette?
See you
again.